And we're back. It's another Neville and Chill live stream. Hello, everyone. Tonight we are talking about Neville Goddard's famous telephone technique. It is one of my favorite techniques to manifest anything. And it is also a technique that has really taken the community by storm. Anybody who's been studying Neville Goddard or techniques for manifestation or consciousness, law of assumption, law of attraction, all of these ideas fit in perfectly with this technique, the telephone technique. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Now, to be clear, I could have made a pre-recorded video about this and just put it up on my YouTube channel for maximum dissemination, but there's a reason why I wanted to do this live. There's a reason why I wanted to come on camera and talk it out. And that is because I really want to share some of the deeper insights than maybe what I would get to in an 8-minute video, and also go a little bit deeper into what Neville said about the telephone technique. So I'm still waiting for some people to join here on the live, but we're going to go ahead and give a little bit of a backstory. So a couple months ago, I posted my voice narration of Neville's lecture titled Test Yourself. Test Yourself. In this Neville lecture, Test Yourself, Neville shares the telephone technique. I published my voice narration of Neville's lecture. I put it on my channel, and it has quickly become one of the most popular videos on my channel recently, particularly of the Neville narrations that I do. And I think the reason for that is people are looking for techniques. People really want to understand how to very directly apply what they're learning from Neville. So seeing how many people were interested in this idea of the telephone technique, I figured tonight would be a perfect opportunity for us to talk about not only what Neville said, but also just kind of talk about the best practice about how to use the telephone technique. And then also, I'm going to share some of my stories about how I have successfully used the telephone technique. And I'm looking forward to have anybody in the chat who would like to share their stories about how they've used the telephone technique. That would be wonderful as well. So we're going to have some fun with this tonight. All right, let's go ahead and get started by welcoming everybody on the live stream. Hello, everyone. I see we have Anna, Oksana, Jackie, Stasio, Paula, Flicker, Maple, Bonnie, Yosa, and April. Welcome. And everybody who hasn't said hello yet, welcome as well. Dracarius. Okay, I'm sorry, not Dracarius, Dracaries. Okay. I'm going to open up my drink here. That's one of our traditions here on Neville and Chill. It's supposed to be chill, right? So even though I get excited and I love talking about these things, I like to keep the chill vibe by opening up a beverage. So I hope wherever you are, you can crack a beverage with me. Tonight is a special night in terms of beverages. So for many, many months here on Neville and Chill, I have been drinking Poppy. It's one of my favorite prebiotic sodas, and I just really enjoy it in general. Now, I have a bit of a connection to this brand because it was founded by an old coworker of mine from many years ago, more than a decade ago. I worked with Allison even before she was married to her now partner, Steven. I was working with her in Texas, and I followed her on social media, and I saw a couple years after I went off and did other things. She went off and did other things, and a couple years into us just kind of going our separate ways and doing other things, after having worked together in this particular job in Texas, I saw that she had founded a soda brand called Poppy. Long story short, yesterday, Allison and Steven announced that their brand, Poppy, has been sold to PepsiCo for $1.95 billion, with a B, billion dollars. So tonight, we are cheersing my old coworker, Allison, and her husband, Steven. Congratulations on your successful exit from Poppy, $1.95 billion. You earned it. Fantastic. Well done. Cheers. Ginger lime. Delicious. Okay. I was so excited to share that little announcement, the PepsiCo Poppy. because Ellison is one of those people I knew right away from the day when I met her. She's one of those people that imagines wisely. She knows exactly what she wants and she goes after it with tenacity. She does not take no for an answer. The job that I was doing with her was sales training. We were both being trained as salespeople and also trained to be sales managers. And so I learned very quickly her tenacity. She was one of the leaders in the company at that time. So I knew she was going to go off to do amazing things. Yeah, I see in the chat, Flicker Maple, Donna, congrats, Allison. I wonder what you'll do next, what you'll create next. Yeah, exactly. Sure, whatever it is, it'll be awesome. Okay. With that, let's talk about the telephone technique. Okay, so let's start by just illustrating what the telephone technique is as introduced by Neville. So the basic idea of the telephone technique, we have something that we would like to manifest. Okay, so this can literally be anything. We have an event. It needs to be a specific event that we would like to have take place in our reality. And so with the telephone technique, what we do is we imagine a scene where someone is telling us that that event has taken place. Okay, now Neville, due to the era where he was teaching, he was living in the time of the rotary dial telephone. So a lot of his news would come over the phone. He would be in his apartment in New York City, and one of his students or attendees or friends would call him on the telephone and tell him when something amazing had happened in their lives. So he learned to use his imagination to create those telephone calls before they actually happened in tangible 3D reality. Okay, so he would use his imagination and he would visit the telephone call in time and space before actually meeting that event in his timeline. Okay, so that's why it's called the telephone technique, is because it comes from a man who was living in the era of, telephones. Now, me personally, I very rarely talk on the telephone, but I do still use the technique, and all of us can still use the technique. But specifically, to talk about the telephone technique, we do still need to focus on the sound of the voice. Okay, so there's many techniques for how to manifest things. The key point here when we're talking about the telephone technique is we are focusing on the voice, okay, the sound of the voice. So if you attend Sunday Mystery School, which is my Sunday live streams, we've been doing master classes recently, and the one that I just gave this past Sunday, we were talking about how our imaginal senses, okay, so our physical senses, but transposed to the realm of imagination, are our God power. So I can, using my God power, I can touch something that is not in front of me. It's not physical, it's not in the 3D, but using my God power, my imagination, I can touch it. Okay, so I can hold a tennis ball in my imagination in my hand, and I can literally get the sensation in my brain as though it was physically here. Same thing with smelling a rose. That was the exercise we did on Sunday. We practiced smelling a rose. I can conjure the fragrance of a rose using my imagination, even though there is no rose present in my environment. How am I doing that? It's my God power. My physical 5 senses transposed to imagination are my God power. Okay? That's the power of imagination, and it's the power that creates reality. So we practice with our imaginal senses. So this idea of the telephone technique takes the imaginal sense of hearing. That's what it focuses on, imaginal sense of hearing. We have 4 other senses we can use as well, but particularly for the telephone technique, we are focusing on the sense of hearing. Okay. Telephone technique, the sense of hearing. So let's break this down. Okay. So we know a certain event that we desire to experience, something we want to manifest for our lives. And we know how that news would arrive, or how someone, regardless of how the news arrives, what someone would say to us when they find out that that event has occurred. Having this foreknowledge of what is likely to occur, what people are likely to say, okay? Having this foreknowledge, we can now go into imagination and we can hear that news now. We can hear the congratulations now. We can have people say to us now what they would say to us if now the event had already occurred. Okay, so this is a form of time travel, okay? But we also have to realize that there's kind of this fine line between fantasy and daydreaming and using God power. It's kind of this fine line because not everything that we fantasize or daydream about hearing people say, not all of those things do people actually say. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is bringing our charge to it. Okay, the difference is the charge that we bring to it. So when we're just idly, daydreaming, as I used to do when I was a child, sometimes my mind would just drift away and I'd imagine that I was in some distant place. Those things did not manifest because I didn't bring any charge to it. I didn't have the intention of it manifesting. I didn't give it the tones of reality to where I was really hearing it in the here and now. The same way that I might smell a rose in the here and now, I can think about smelling a rose or I can actually smell a rose. And when I'm actually smelling a rose and I'm inhaling the scent of a rose, I'm making it here and now, and that's bringing my charge to it. Okay, so this idea of hearing someone's voice, how we bring our charge to it is we listen intently and we hear exactly what their voice sounds like. Okay, so this is where we start to get into this idea of best practices. Okay, so there's a million ways to do anything, and there's best practices that will save you a lot of time. Okay, so best practices. You want to choose someone that is your go-to. Okay, this is probably your best friend, or if you are a mother or a father, you have kind of this built-in superpower. It could be your child, okay, because I'm sure you know your child's voice better than you know anyone's voice, okay? So your best friend, if you're not currently a parent, or your child, if you are blessed to be a father or a mother and you have a child and they're old enough to speak, okay, and you know what their voice sounds like and you know what they would say, okay, but you want to choose one person to really focus on, okay? And this should also be, as a best practice, there should be someone who supports and encourages you no matter what, okay? You want to use your ride or die best friend, not the one that's like, ever trying to throw shade or, throw water on your flame, right? You don't ever want to choose that person. You want to choose people that are going to have your back no matter what, and just want the highest and best for you no matter what. Okay. So for some of us, that might be our parents. For some of us, that might be our children. For some of us, that might be our best friend. Choose one person and really, really think about and hear, right? Think about that person and then conjure their voice and hear what they sound like. Okay, not just the sound of their voice, but their mannerisms, right? Remember, we're time traveling. We're moving to a time and space where they're actually saying it. So say it in your mind the same way they would say it, okay? Now, what are they going to say? They're going to say something to you that they would only say if this event had happened, okay? They would only say this if this event had happened. Okay. I'm gonna give my first example. Okay, so I've been using these techniques for a long time, and I've dramatically changed and upgraded my quality of life. And also, one of my favorite things to do is to manifest on behalf of others because I love to see the people around me thriving. So my family has really gone through some big upgrades because I've been using my God power to upgrade life for them through the wise use of imagination. So I'm going to give you one example. So I have a family member who is a business person and started off as a kitchen table business person. Okay, so kitchen table business person, meaning running a business, bootstrapping it, self-funded, just starting it up from the kitchen table. Okay. And because I love these people and like I said, I love to see these people thrive. I was like, I really want to see this business grow. I want to see them have a lot of success. So what would imply that that this person was having a lot of success? So I asked that question to myself, and the natural thing that came back to me, very natural, was this person would want to get off of their kitchen table and they would want to open an office. They would want to open an office. Okay, cool. So what would they say to me if they were opening an office? Well, they'd probably call me. This particular person calls me. This particular person calls me, and when we give each other our life updates, they would say, well, we found an office to lease and we're getting ready to move in. And I would be thrilled to hear this because that's exactly what I want for them. And I know that it is a measure of their success, both in terms of financial success, because they're able to afford leasing an office space, and also just prominence in the community. It's like, okay, now instead of, kitchen table, now there's an actual location that people can come into, and there's a sign in the building, all this type of stuff. The sign in the building is another thing. Okay, so it's like, yeah, so we're moving. And so that's what I heard them say. And it's funny I mentioned the sign in the building because I know we're focused on hearing, but in my mind's eye, I also had the thought they will have not only an office space, but they will also have a sign on the front of the building that says that their office is in this building. And so again, we're focusing on the hearing, right? But I also saw for this particular imaginal act, I saw the sign in the building and I heard him say, we're moving into an office. Okay. This is what I did. I focused intently. Okay. Focus is one of the most important skills you can have as a brave mystic. Okay. When you are using the power of imagination wisely and lovingly, you need to cultivate the skill of focus. Okay. So focus intently. Okay. So removing all distractions, I just focused intently and I called this person close to me in my imagination, and I caught the sound and mannerisms of the voice, the tonality and mannerisms of the voice. And then I heard him say to me, we found an office space, we signed the lease, and we're getting ready to move in. That's what I heard him say, because that's just normally, naturally what he would say. And I listened to him say it probably 5 or 6 times until it really felt real. It really felt real, like I had actually heard that. And I felt my joy, right? 'Cause I love to see them thrive. So naturally, I want this to happen. So I felt my thrill for them, like, oh, I'm so excited for you. I felt that natural because I just heard him say it. So that was me bringing my charge, right? My reaction, oh, I just heard him say that. Okay. It was not the next day. Okay. It wasn't even 3 days later. We talk about the 3-day rule. It wasn't even 3 days later. It was a couple months later. But I got that telephone call, and on that telephone call, that's what he said. He said, we've outgrown our space here. We found an office space to lease. We signed the lease and we're moving in. And naturally, I was not surprised because I knew that that's what I had written for this character in my drama. And I was expecting it. I didn't know when it would happen. I didn't have any attachment to when it would happen. I just knew that it would happen. Okay, now, some people might say, oh, but your imagination had nothing to do with that. That would have happened anyway. Okay, but we don't know that. Okay, because he very well could have called me and said, this business, we're really struggling financially to keep it going. And I think we're going to go try something else. Okay. But it's not what he said. He said, we're doing great. So much so that we need an office space. We're going to go, we just signed a lease. We just found a place and signed a lease. Okay. So it's like when we're doing this, we are writing forward. We're writing forward. We're writing ahead in the drama for these characters that are in our play. Okay. And because it's loving, and because it's something that I would wish, for myself, for them, it follows the golden rule, right? Because of that, that's how I knew it would happen. I knew it would happen. In the chat, can we use the telephone technique for text messages for those of us who don't do phone calls? Okay, so we're going to split hairs a little bit here. So the whole point of the telephone technique is to use voice. Okay, so in this case, I would say rather than imagining receiving a text message, hear someone's voice. Who do you talk to? some of us maybe don't talk to anyone. And if that's you, then, let me know and maybe we can come up with something else. But right now, for what we're talking about here, I really want to drill into this idea of hearing the voice. So there's got to be someone, that you would tell your good news to, or someone, I guess we're talking about imagining about other people, right? So like there's got to be some way that we can use the faculty of the voice here. That's the bottom line, really focusing on this faculty of the voice. Okay. So if you're imagining for someone else, imagine that you hear them use their voice to tell you, right? If you are imagining for yourself, then there's someone in your life who's always rooting for you, who you can hear their voice, their mannerisms, and then when you tell them your good news, you can hear what they would say back. Okay, so this speaks to Neville's idea of the congratulations or the handshake, right? Because that's like a very, generic common thing when something good happens, okay? So that's the basic idea here. Okay, what else have we used it on? Let's see. Jobs. I have many friends who are employed because I used the power of the telephone technique to employ them. So these are people that, tell me that they've lost their job or, were laid off or looking, okay? And I would just simply go into my imagination and hear them tell me, hey, I got that job I wanted. I'm excited. It's working out great, right? And it's, again, the whole idea here is you need to focus and you need to really hear it. You're not just daydreaming about it, you're really hearing it. Okay, you're using power. You need to think of this as an imaginal act. You are using power. You're not just daydreaming or idly, imagining. You are using God power when you do this. Okay, so you need to use focus and intention, channel that charge, really hear their voice. Okay, so yes, I got the job. Couple other examples. Let's see here. Healing, physical healing. This is a very powerful one and pretty common too. It's hearing someone say that they're feeling much better, right? So you get the news, that someone's going through some sort of health issue, and there may be some pain, maybe an illness or something like that, and then really tuning into their voice and hearing them say with that cheeriness, right? The uplifted cheeriness, like, oh yeah, I'm feeling a lot better now. I like to use the I've never felt better. That's a Neville thing, right? It's not just, oh, I'm feeling better. It's I actually feel like I've come back to life. Like I actually feel even better than I did before I got sick. That type of thing. I really like to do that because I feel like I just feel like that's a really cool way to like emphasize the powers. Just like put them in a place where they've never felt better. Okay. Oh man, I have another example that's another level. Let's see. Okay. Relationships. Yeah, relationships. I have a couple friends that are no longer single because I heard them tell me about their partner that they're now dating. That's a fun one, right? So it's literally again, same thing. It's like what would they tell me if they were now seeing someone that they were excited about? What would they say? Right? And then consciously hearing them say that. I had a friend who had a unbalanced relationship with a very addictive substance and admitted it to me one day. Kind of came out of the closet about it because this particular friend had not been very truthful about it to their friends and family. So they kind of came out of the closet and told me. And I was present in the moment with them. I mean, we have to use this power, wisely, right? So let's be present with our friends in the moment, and like receive what they have to say. But then as soon as I was out of there, the whole drive home, I was hearing him tell me what he would tell me if that relationship were now back in balance. Okay, which in this case would have been abstinence. And it wasn't the next day and it wasn't 3 days later, but it was surprisingly quickly for a situation like this. He said the words that I had put in his mouth, and he was like, "Hey, I've been able to quit, been able to quit." And it wasn't just that. There's a couple other things too, which for privacy's sake, I'm not going to share. But it wasn't just let's have him say I quit. I actually wrote a whole life upgrade for this particular person, and it's been that and more. Like, it's even surprised me. I don't really get surprised when I've imagined something, then people come and say it, because I just know that's how the law works. But they come back and they say it, and then they like add 10 more things that are even better than imagined. And then I just feel joyful. I just feel joyful about it. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is just better than I could have even, clearly imagined, because I only put these things in your mouth, and now you're coming and you're saying these things and all these other things. Okay. So that's amazing. And it's really, really cool to experience that. Can it be used with regards to manifesting relationships or connections? Yeah. Yeah. So one example would be if you wanted relationships or connections. Yeah. So you could hear the person that you desire to have a connection with, a relationship to, say something to you that they would only say were that relationship status or connection now a present fact. Right. So, for example, if there's someone that has caught your eye and you want to go from being a person of interest to being in a relationship with them, then maybe you would listen until you hear their voice very clearly and then have them introduce you as their partner. Okay. You probably want to use a word a little bit more specific than partner. Otherwise, you might find yourself in business with them. Right. But I'm just using partner because it's generic enough. You choose, right? If you want a romantic partnership, maybe you use a different word, but hear them introduce you as the status of relationship that you desire to be with them. Okay. And again, give it the tones of reality, hear it very clearly, repeat it until you feel some sort of thrill of like, heck yeah, I just got introduced as this person's, meaningful partner. Right. So great example. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Other success stories. Okay. So sometimes just day-to-day life stuff, right? So, I have a partner, and, sometimes she'll tell me stuff that's going on at work that isn't her favorite, and so I listen to her. And then when she's done talking, I just put new words in her mouth and then just wait for her to say them. And she's listening right now, so I hope she's smiling. I know she does that for me too, because sometimes, I'm human. Sometimes I get in a little bit of a mood about something, and I'll be like, this thing, blah, blah, blah. And then I know that she does the same thing. She listens to me. And then when I'm done, she's like, I'm just going to put new words in his mouth and have him say how excited he is about whatever he was complaining about a minute ago. Right? That's the beauty of having a partner that, you can be that for and have them be that for you. Really cool. Okay. What else? What else? Oh, okay. Okay. We've talked about the telephone technique for about 30 minutes here. I think I can now bridge out and talk about another situation. Okay. So there was another situation that I did that I manifested something using not the telephone technique specifically. We're branching out a little bit, but what I did, I'm just going to share the whole story. Okay. This is years ago. I have to preface it by saying this is years ago because this was foolish of me. And I will admit that it was a little foolish of me because I was learning Neville. This was early in understanding Neville. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't yet fully understand exactly how powerful my imagination is. I thought it was like, oh, I have some power to like shape the story here and there. I didn't realize exactly how much power our imagination has. I didn't fully get it yet. I was still very young in my growth. Okay. So now I'm careful about doing something like what I'm about to tell you that I did. But in this case, I kind of used it a little bit foolishly, or at least I didn't. Let me say this. I don't want to call it foolish completely. This is what happened. I used my imagination in a way where it was not respectful of its power. I did it without considering the consequences. Okay. So here's what happened. This was 2021. And I was trading in the financial markets. I was learning how to trade the financial markets kind of earlier in my career, and I was learning how to trade options. And I got into a trade on NVIDIA. And this is back when NVIDIA was, a small company and their stock was not worth that much money. And they were just people were just kind of starting to get excited about NVIDIA back in the beginning. And I bought some options and they were dated like a month out. And the price, I bought call options. I was expecting the price to go up and the price started to go down. In fact, the stock kind of started to dump. And I was not happy about that because I had a couple $1,000s in these options. And I was like, I need the price to go up. Why is the price going down? So I got it from my computer and I walked away and I went into a private part of the house just to kind of like set my space. And I was like, I'm going to use my imagination and I'm going to force this trade to work. I'm going to force this trade to work. And so I started to conjure this energy and I started to like really build a charge. And then I was like, okay, what would make this price go up? And I was like, oh, the value of the company would go up. And so this is what I said. And I said it in my imagination with the full force of my will, like all of my charges, is what I said. I said, NVIDIA is the most valuable company on earth. And I was like, with the force of will, right? Everybody knows it. NVIDIA is the most valuable company on earth. Okay. So that was 2021. It didn't happen the next day. It didn't happen 3 days later. In fact, that trade, I ended up closing out at a loss. Okay. So it did not immediately, blip the matrix like I was hoping it would. But I will tell you that as of at least January, I think maybe things have shifted a little bit now, but at least January, I saw a headline where NVIDIA was the most valuable company on earth. 4 years. Okay. But for me, it was undeniable. Immediately when I read that headline, I was like, oh, what did I do? What did I do? Now, some of you might be saying, dude, come on. That would have happened anyway. Are you sure? Are you sure that would have happened anyway? Or is that just an excuse for not owning the power of your imagination? Okay, I'm going to let you stew on that one and see for yourself. But here's the lesson. Here's the lesson, okay? I, from a place of foolish short-term greed, spoke something into existence without really caring at all what the impact or consequences would have been, okay? Now, I don't really know, even to this day, what the impact and consequences of NVIDIA being the most valuable company on earth are. But I can also admit that I did not consider any of that before I did that back 4 years ago. Okay. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, let's be mindful of the power. And instead of just like from a foolish, oh, I want to make a couple $100 in the next 3 days. So I'm going to change the future using my God power. Okay. Maybe let's use some wisdom. Maybe let's learn this power. And maybe, let's on purpose choose to use our power with wisdom and to choose wisely what we speak into existence. Okay. Believing that it is as powerful as it truly is, rather than pretending that it doesn't matter. It felt natural, didn't it? It did. It did. It did. And I felt the Stasi, you bring that up. Did you felt natural? Yeah, it did. And I felt the charge. I think that's the key thing. I wasn't daydreaming, oh, what if NVIDIA was the most, it was not that. It was a rush, a thrill in my emotional body. I was like, NVIDIA is the most valuable company on earth and everybody knows it. And it was like this, so the virtue went out of me. Remember, that's the scriptural teaching. Who touched me? For I perceived virtue went out of me. I touched the image where NVIDIA was the most valuable company on earth and everybody knew it. And the virtue went out. Okay, so I spoke that into existence. All right. So what would you do differently now? Shelley says, how do you determine the potential consequences? Okay, so that's a great question, right? How would you determine the potential consequences? This is what I would say, though. I think this is the lesson. Is I don't do things like that anymore. I am not that specific about big things anymore because my local ego can't account for all the potential consequences. Okay. So what I do is when I speak declarations forward, when I write forward in a way that affects planet Earth, when I write forward in that way, I choose a framework, right? Rather than calling out a specific company and saying this one will be the best or the greatest or the most valuable, rather than doing that, I will say things like, the golden age, where everyone wakes up and recognizes the power of their imagination, where all of us begin to imagine wisely and lovingly, where the golden rule gives birth to the golden age. It's like these big things, like where we live in harmony with ourselves first, and then each other, and then the earth. It's these bigger concepts rather than pointing to a single thing and saying, by the force of my ego / imagination, it will be this way. Okay. So it's just, I guess, using a little bit more mature wisdom. A clear intention with an elevated emotion. Yeah. Specific hyperbole sometimes has an impact. It has elements of ego and generalization. Yeah, it's a good call out. Yeah. How does it feel as you are bringing it into existence? Like an energetic orgasm. That's what it feels like. I felt a charge and a release. And that's how, because I knew that I had done something in that moment, even though I didn't comprehend what I had done, the extent of it. That's why I remembered it so vividly when I then read that news article, NVIDIA, the most valuable by market cap. It's world's first $1 trillion company. If I think I'm quoting that correctly, but for sure it hit the all-time most valuable company status. Okay. It's multiple trillions. Okay. So I felt that energetic orgasm. I felt that like something went out. That's how it feels. Now, for something like that, that's how it feels. But really, when you're using the telephone technique, just to be clear, when you're using the telephone technique, you're hearing the sound of their voice. And when it becomes vivid and you feel that rush, that thrill of like, oh, I just heard them say this, that's how you know it's complete. And then you just let it go. It's not up to you to control the timing. It's up to you to hear it and then allow the gestation, the natural processes, rhythms, and cycles of the simulation to organize what needs to happen to bring it back. So in this case, this NVIDIA story, the simulation had to develop the backstory about AI and about GPUs and about, the semiconductor issues and the supply chain issues and, all these things, all these forces that conspired to make NVIDIA the one that blew up. It could have been another company, right? But it was NVIDIA because that's the one that I thrust this energy into. And so the simulation paid attention and started arranging all of the pieces and parts to come back and confirm to me. Remember that the scripture is, the word that proceeds out of my mouth will not return to me void, but will accomplish the purpose for which it is sent. Okay, so in this case, I spoke it out and it came back and it was not void. It accomplished its purpose. Okay. Shelley, so the how you're focused on? No, it wasn't the how. It was that I chose a specific company. That's what I mean by specificity. That I was egotistical enough to choose a specific way. I guess that is the how, isn't it? Sort of. How does this happen? I don't know. I was very specific, a little too specific, I think, for my own good in that case. And I think honestly, we could debate whether or not it's good for Earth that NVIDIA is the most valuable company. I know their stock took a hit recently, so where we're sitting in the liquid modernity of the now moment, they may no longer be number one, but they did hit number one, so it did come to pass. Okay. Let's see. Are there any other stories that we want to share about the telephone technique, how to use it? Do we feel like we understand clearly what the steps are? I'm going to review because I feel like we need to review. Okay. You're going to select an event that you want to have happen for yourself, for another. You're going to select a person that would report this event to you. Remember, in Neville's day, it was expecting a phone call. And Neville has shared 100 stories about this working. He says it cannot fail. He says if you literally hear them speak it to the point where your imaginal eardrum is vibrating and it's like that level of vividness and you hear it and you know that you heard it and you feel that thrill, he says it cannot fail if you get to that level of clarity. Cannot fail. You choose the event, you select the person, you hear them say something that they would only say if that event had now already happened. Okay, so you want to jump over the event and hear the evidence of the event. They can say anything, but it needs to be something that they would only say if the event had already happened. Use someone whose voice you are familiar with if you can. You can also kind of develop this superpower of like, literally day-to-day stuff. Let's say you have a child around and you know their voice. Little things, big things, in your imagination, tell them what just happened and then hear what they would say back. It's kind of a fun way to do it, but hear it vividly. Okay, so you have like a little bit of a superpower because you know this person's voice so well. So use it. Use that superpower. Construct the event, find the person, hear their voice, hear it clearly, let it go. That's the other thing. Let it go. So in all the examples that I shared, I was not anxious or nervous about whether or not it would happen. As far as I was concerned, it already had happened. I was just waiting for the simulation to catch up. That's the level you want to be at when you're a master manifester. You know when the virtue has gone out of you. You know when you've used imagination and created something. And then you're just waiting for the simulation to catch up. And it's as natural as, planting seeds in your garden and knowing that you're going to have fruit later in the summer, right? So you just chill and wait. Here it comes, right on time. Let the wind and the rain and, the earth and the soil and the earthworms and, let everything just do its job. It's cool, right? Let it happen. When that gestation period is over, it'll emerge. Yes, I guess Orlena just got here. We did just review. Yep, those are the key points. Let's see. Is there anything else? Julian, yeah, great. Okay, I have been trying to construct a phone scene to heal a health problem. I call my wife at work to tell her I woke up completely healed, and I hear her reaction. Do you think this could work? Yes, it can work. Let's review why. 1, you know your wife's voice quite well. 2, you know that she would be happy for her, and you know that she would be happy for you, and you know what she would say. 3, it's probably pretty easy for you to do this scene. This definitely can work, and for some people, it would be very easy for it to work. The only thing that I would say for you to consider is whether or not your belief, right? Whether or not your belief is strong enough to the point where you can get it very vivid. So what I'm saying is that scene, you would have to really believe that just happened, and now you're hearing her confirm it, okay? Because it's happening to you, and now she's reflecting it back to you. So that's one way to do it, and it can definitely work that way as long as you can get to that point where you feel that thrill. So that's the whole point of having the virtue go out of you. The second thing is, if you have a healer or a doctor or someone that you're working with, if your subconscious mind would accept a all clear diagnosis from them more readily than an overnight miraculous healing, maybe put the words in their mouth, right? Have them say, your tests are perfect. There's, obviously I'm just making it up because I don't know your health condition, but I'm just giving you a couple options of different people that you can put words in their mouth and find the one that feels like it's easiest for you to believe, right? It's easiest for you to believe. Can we do this for an event in the past? In the past, like for revision, have someone tell you an event in the past it was different, like you're revising it. Yeah, you can. I think you can do that. Try that. It's a little different than the telephone technique we're talking now. We're really kind of writing forward in the way that we're presenting the telephone technique. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to use it. You can definitely play with that. Jackie's sharing in the chat. I heard my daughter's voice say, I got the job. No emotion, no charge, just heard the voice. She came home and said, I got the job. Yes, absolutely. Let's see. Do we have one more story? Let's see. Hmm. You know, there's a lot of stories. I'm just trying to think of one that's high impact for this moment. I mean, I've shared a couple already. Um, yeah. Okay. Can we do this for an event in the past? Yeah. Yeah, for a revision. Yeah, I think you can. No, I think honestly, I think I've given enough stories. I think we've hit the gist here. I think we have a clear understanding of what the telephone technique is. So that's good. That's good. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you all. I hope it's been helpful to have a little bit of a deeper dive into what the telephone technique is, how to use it. I hope we've made it clear. I hope you've been inspired by the success stories. So now let's talk about your homework. Your homework is to practice using the telephone technique. So, what is that? That is choosing something you would like to have happen this week, assuming that it has happened, and then hearing someone give you a report about it. Hearing someone come to you, hear their voice, hear them say whatever the event is that happened. Okay, so have them say something that they would only say if that event had already happened. And make it something that you know is going to happen this week. Okay, just to like really build faith as a faith building exercise. Doesn't have to be a big thing. You don't have to make, some company the most valuable on the planet. Just something that you're going to encounter this week. Okay? Oh, right, the prices of things. That was the last story I had hanging around in there somewhere. The prices of things. Hearing people tell me that the price is much less than what I was expecting. Right? You go to get a quote for something, a car or, a house repair or whatever, and then having them be like, "Oh yeah, it's, and whatever the number is, it's way less." Right? And then being like, "Wow." So I pre-pave and I'm like, "Oh yeah, great." That's worked several times too. That's I have a couple stories about that, but that's the gist of it is hearing them say a much lower number than what it could have been. That's a fun one. Cool. Are there consequences to making something happen? If it comes from this place of the golden rule and like love and care for another or for yourself, you don't have to worry about consequences. It's just when you're doing this thing where it's from the ego, like I was sharing earlier about my story, like that was a little foolish of me because there was no love in that. It wasn't like, it was ego focused. It was about me and my needs. It was about trying to make some money. Like it was greedy. Like it was not a good look. Like I said, it was years ago, and I'm glad that I've grown so much in that amount of time. But I can call it what it is. It wasn't a great look, So it's like avoid that. That's one of those things you don't do. What you do is you think what would be something loving, positive for myself, for another. I want the best for them, and just imagine the same way you would want someone to be imagining for you. That's the bottom line. Cool. Okay. I do have one more story, but it's old news to the mastermind, but we're going to end on this. Okay, so one warm Saturday afternoon, I'm hanging out on my porch with my partner, and I go inside the house and I hear an alarm coming from the house that I've never heard before. And long story short, it was our sewer pump. It was basically on fire. The sewer pump was on fire. It was not a risk to the dwelling, but it was basically it burned up. And so, because of where we live and the arrangement of our little scenario here, that sewer pump could have been our financial responsibility, or it could have been paid for by the association. And the reason, like whether it would be one or the other, is based on whether or not we were at fault for it burning up. So if we were, flushing things we weren't supposed to flush, putting things down the garbage disposal that we're not supposed to do that, and then it gets caught up in the motor of the sewer pump and then burns up that way, then it's our responsibility to replace it. And it's, like five grand. The other option is that if it just got old and died, then it's not our responsibility and the association pays for it. So call the guy comes out. And as soon as I hear him speaking, I know what his voice sounds like. I immediately start pre-paving the conversation. And I hear him say a couple of things. One, I hear him say, "Oh yeah, I've got the replacement part right here," because I didn't want this to go on until later. I wanted him to replace it immediately. He's like, "Oh yeah, got it with me." Okay, so I heard him say that. Even before he opened up everything and looked, I heard him say that. "I've got the piece right here. It'll be done, quickly." And then I also heard him say, "It's just old. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just old. The association will pay for it." Okay. So I heard him say these things. He's out there, he's digging up the, everything. I'm just inside doing my thing. Finally, he's done, and I come back out, and he turns to me and he says exactly those things. He's like, "I've got the piece right here. I've inspected this. I've got the replacement piece right here in my truck. I don't even have to go anywhere and get anything. I've got everything I need. I can do it right now. And this just died of old age, and you're not responsible. So the association will pay for it." Okay, so it's perfect. Perfect example. So you can use that, it's like super easy, but you just the whole point is that you have to be very present in the moment and know your power and remember your power constantly remember your power. Even as life gets dynamic and alarms are going off in your house, remember your power. Use that as your opportunity to put it to the test. That's the bottom line. I see you, Jackie. Yeah. A silence button. Silencio. Okay. That might be a telephone technique situation too. I'll let you sit on that one. What would be a telephone technique for solving that problem? What would you hear someone say? And remember, you can't do this in the negative. You can't say, "Oh, what would I hear them not say?" Or the sound that they wouldn't make. You can't do it in the negative. Your subconscious mind only understands affirmative. So you would need to somehow position it in a way where they're saying something, but it leads to the outcome of the absence, right? Of what you don't want to be. There you go, Donna. Yeah. There you go. Person says, "Is this similar to Neville's wife when they wanted someone to repay them?" Neville's stories are full of telephone technique examples. All throughout his teachings, he talks about the telephone technique. People getting jobs, people getting raises, people getting, their houses rented or renting new houses or selling a house that, their realtor said wouldn't sell, or buying a house that, their realtor said they couldn't get, or getting approval for a loan, they couldn't get. Like he'd just sit there by the telephone and hear people say things, and then they'd call him and say them. Right. So it really is a superpower. And the more that you work with it, again, it's our God power. The more you work with it, the more it can become a superpower. Just please learn from my examples here. I gave you positive examples and I gave you a foolish example. So be that wise steward and learn and put this to the test. Do it the right way. Okay, that's all I got for you tonight. Thanks for tuning in and making this Neville and Chill a fun one. Looking forward to seeing you all on Sunday for the next Sunday Mystery School. Final thing I'm going to say here is I am leading a 99-day Brave Mystic training course. It's a live course and it starts next month. And I put the link in the video description. So if that's something you want to take a look at, go visit that link, read through the description of what's going on there. And if you want to know more and you want to get the link when it's actually open, add your name to the wait list so I can follow up with you. And I look forward to catching you all in the next one. Imagine wisely, my friends. Use that telephone technique. And I'll see you all again soon.